Tonight, no recession. That's the word from the central bank governor. Hear what else he's saying about the economy. The father of the latest murder victim tells Our News his daughter had no issues that could have led to her cold-blooded killing this morning. The often controversial statue of Columbus gone? But where and what will replace it? And then in Our News at 7:30, the owner of Fox Hill Nursery greeted by a ransacked office as thieves hit overnight. It's a story you'll only see on Our News. Our News Live at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks for joining us. I'm Candido Knowles. No recession right now. That's the word from central bank governor who released the latest economic report today, in fact. The news gets better as he's also indicating that the economy is set to grow next year. Berthany McDermott gets us started tonight.
Despite global predictions of a recession, Central Bank Governor John Rowell says this is unlikely due to pent-up demand in the tourism sector. The news came during the bank's quarterly economic press briefing Monday morning.
We are experiencing and benefiting from the pent-up demand for travel that was not met or satisfied at the height of the pandemic. And that recovery for us is going to overpower, some of the other negative trends that are out there in the global environment.
Johns Hopkins University economists are predicting a whopper of a recession in 2023 for the United States. And they're not the only ones. Back in August, CNN reported 72% of economists expect a U.S. recession by the middle of next year. Despite these grim forecasts, Rowell is saying otherwise.
Had the global environment presented itself even in a more favorable context, then the sort of recovery and growth that you see for the Bahamas would be even stronger.
Rowell says the central bank is expecting the tourism sector to complete its recovery through 2023. He says the cruise market has eclipsed pre-pandemic levels.
In the stopover segment, however, the monthly gap is still closing. The monthly comparison shows that air arrivals in August had regained approximately 90% of the pre-pandemic highs, while in the month-over-month comparison, the 2019 outcomes could be matched by the end of the third quarter of 2022. The central bank's baseline measure for complete recovery is still a comparison of the closing months of the year against the final 4 months of 2018.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
A bloody weekend as police investigate 4 murders in 3 days, the latest happening early this morning. The victim identified as Patrice Sawyer, who was shot and killed in front of her home on Johnson Road sometime before 6 a.m. Her father, Percy Sawyer, speaking with Our News today, recalling how he was awakened to gunshots. He agonizes over the fact that he says his daughter had no issues with anyone that could have led to such a cold-blooded killing.
So then I heard her mother in there start, she was hollering. So I come down because I said, don't tell me they shoot gunshot across from the road and it come in the house. But when I reached the door, I meet her, trying to find a way outside because she don't see too well. And I asked her what happened because I thought she get hurt. And then she said, nothing happened to me. So I decided to go to the next door where my daughter be. And she said, she ain't there. So I said, what you mean she ain't there? Say, that's all, that's all.
All right, for more on this story, be sure and stay tuned to Our News at 7:30 with our Italia Hall. 18 and 3 men are in police custody tonight for a series of serious offenses while being electronically monitored. Their arrests followed suspicion of stealing from a vehicle, damage, and unlawful possession. They range in age 19 to 40 years old. Police say they were already being monitored on bail for murder and stealing from a vehicle. The son of anti-crime activist Carlos Reed Sr. has pleaded guilty to drug possession. 31-year-old Carlos Reed Jr. pleaded guilty in connection with his arrest on April 17th. Officers stopped him as he drove a heavily tinted Chevy Cruze on Bernard Road and found 1 pound and 7 ounces of marijuana with a combined value of $1,560. He told police officers, quote, "I had that to smoke. I don't sell nothing. I just loved weed." Police ended up charging him with drug possession with intent to supply. Reed denied the intent accusation and pleaded guilty to the reduced charge of drug possession. Magistrate Samuel McKinney gave Reed the choice of paying an $1,800 fine or spending 6 months in prison. Now, the convict's father, a former gang member, runs a mentorship program aimed at steering troubled youth from a life of crime. Our News can confirm that the man who died in that freak accident on Friday is 70-year-old Jacob Williams Sr. Williams was struck and killed near the Broadcasting Corporation Centerville headquarters. He was reportedly at a storage facility moving some bundles of steel onto a trailer when a gust of wind dislodged a bundle. While attempting to get out of the crane, Williams was struck and killed. Investigations are ongoing. We've got more to get to in a moment, but for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures across the country. And meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's standing by in the Weather Center. Greg?
Thanks, Kindina, and welcome everybody for our first check on weather on this partly cloudy Monday evening. Temperature right now outside our studios, 83 degrees. Your winds are out of the east at 13 miles per hour. A little bit of a breeze. Factoring in the relative humidity, it feels like 86 on the outdoors. Family Island temperatures at this hour, 84 in Freeport as well as in Alistown, Bimini. We pick up 81 in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. Over in Great Harbor Key, 85. 85 also in Governor's Harbor. Nickel San Andres, 83. Here in the capital, 83 as well. Central Bahamas, you are also in the mid-80s there. 83s in Kemps Bay, Andros, as well as in Arthurstown, Cat Island. We pick up 85 in Georgetown, 86 in Coburn Towns in Salvador. And across in Deadman's Key, your current temperature is at 84. 86 in Dunkertown, Ragged Island. Pair of 83s in Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, as well as in the Delectable Bay, Acklands. Also in Abrahams Bay, 83. Matthewtown, Inagua, 82. And neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you are 85 at this hour. Satellite view around the islands right now. High pressure is in charge. We did have that easterly breeze bringing in some patchy clouds as well as some low-level moisture. So we saw some quick passing showers, and we're going to continue to see that trend throughout the night and into tomorrow as that stiff easterly breeze continues to bring some Atlantic moisture across the area. But the high pressure will remain in charge, so it's going to be relatively dry, if you want to call it that. We won't see anything in terms of any real significant rainfall tonight through tomorrow. That's your first check on weather. Stick with us. A look at the tropics, and your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, 1 year after the statue of Christopher Columbus was damaged and the remaining pieces have been officially removed. OPM officials reveal what's next. And later we'll tell you just how many sand dollars were spent during last weekend's food festival as the digital currency takes off. And Alive welcomes new employees. We'll tell you what's so special about the company's newest team members. It's all coming up when Our News returns. The often controversial Christopher Columbus statue is no more. The structure was officially removed on Sunday in a joint effort between the Ministry of Works, the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Antiquities, Monuments and Museum Corporation. You may remember last year, a man was charged with damaging the monument with a sledgehammer, his actions causing a huge debate about the historical figure. Director of Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister, Latrey Ramming, says the goal was to remove it safely.
The statue is currently being housed at the Ministry of Work. This has been a joint effort between the AAMC, or the Antiquities, Monuments and Corporation, as well as the Ministry of Work and Government has, of course, the Office of the Prime Minister from a communications perspective.
Now, for more on the removal of the historic monument, be sure and stay tuned to Our News at 7:30. We've got the full details. The local digital currency, Sand Dollar, was put to the test just recently when the International Cultural Wine and Food Festival abandoned cash, requiring patrons to use digital currency like the Sand Dollar. More than $200,000 were spent at the event alone. Central Bank's Governor John Roll is hoping the digital pay platform will become more popular.
What was more important was beginning to introduce more persons to using their mobile devices to send and receive money. So demonstrating, what it is like to to conduct payment transactions on the mobile platform. And now that we are beginning that sort of interaction, our focus will zoom in a lot more on the education and the awareness side of that.
For the next 52 weeks, 20 uniquely abled individuals will get an opportunity to work as a part of the Alive Connect program. The group, welcomed by Cable Bahamas group of company officials today at the Alive headquarters. While there, they will work in a number of departments. On hand for the orientation this morning was State Minister for the Public Service, Pia Glover-Roll, who called it a great start to Public Service Week.
We're enhancing the present in terms of ensuring that we have inclusivity, and we're shaping the future and helping people to understand that this is the way that they should model their work environments, ensuring that there's inclusivity for all. And of course, that in doing that, we're fostering from a national development perspective the possibility of human resources looking, I guess, in a different way, but looking in a way that includes every citizen of our nation.
Also spoke with some of the program's participants. You'll get to hear what they had to say in Our News at 7:30. When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as police in South Korea probe the deadly Halloween crowd surge that left more than 100 people dead. Plus, making connections, new details of plans for a new ferry bridge on Exuma. And later, are you still celebrating Halloween? If so, police have a few ways you can dress up safely. The details when Our News returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Rescue teams searching for survivors following the collapse of a 143-year-old suspension bridge in the western Indian state of Gujarat. The death toll stands at 133, making it one of the worst accidents in India's history. Hundreds were sent plunging into the water as security camera footage shows the bridge shaking violently, with people trying to hold on to its cables and metal fencing before the walkway gave way. The bridge only opened on October 26th, the first day of the Gujarat New Year and the Hindu festival season, which drew hundreds of sightseers. A bridge maintenance contract to maintain and manage the bridge was awarded to a company known for only making clocks, mosquito rackets, and electric bikes.
People were hanging from the bridge after the accident, but then they slipped and fell into the river when it collapsed. I saw and called rescue workers around 6:30 p.m. but could not sleep the entire night as I had helped the rescue operation. I brought a lot of children to the hospital. I express my condolences to the families of the people who have lost their lives in this accident. In this hour of grief, the government is with the bereaved families in every manner. The Gujarat government has been carrying out rescue operations with all its might since last evening.
Meanwhile, South Korean police are trying to find out what caused a crowd surge, killing more than 150 people, including 26 foreigners. The tragedy happening during Halloween festivities in Seoul, in the country's worst disaster in years. Witnesses and survivors called it a hell-like chaos, with people falling on top of each other like dominoes. Slow-moving vehicles and party-goers in costumes, making it near impossible for rescuers and ambulances to reach the crammed alleys in the nightclub district. Security cameras and video will hopefully tell the 427-member task force how this tragedy happened.
We opened up a road from here, and there were lots of bodies and victims over here. I gave CPR and massage from here, tapped them to check on them, and then sent them down the alley. Huge crowds were expected, but they didn't prepare for a possible crush or high density of people. Instead, they only prepared for general disasters such as crime prevention, ways to keep the public security, and fire.
일반적인 재난이죠.
The fate of affirmative action once again before the United States Supreme Court. Two landmark cases could dramatically alter how far universities can go when considering the race of an applicant. This ruling could end decades-old affirmative action policies and how universities manage admissions. The cases concern admissions to Harvard and the University of North Carolina. The decades-old policies consider race among blacks and Hispanic applicants intended to ensure minority groups are fairly represented. The question now being considered by the court is whether they are discriminatory and violate civil rights laws.
Affirmative action, settled law, which has been upheld for nearly 40 years, is just a part of a larger systematic attacks on our democracy and our country.
Brazil has a new president after the tightest election race since 1985. Voters delivered a very tight victory to Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, a leftist former president. Da Silva won over the incumbent Jair Bolsonaro by just 50.9%. Even world leaders began prematurely congratulating Bolsonaro from the morning that is, after the vote. His 4 years in office marked with conservatism and a defense of traditional values. His campaign also repeated bogus claims of electoral manipulation before the vote, sparking fears he would not accept defeat and try to change results. The new president served previously for 8 years. Investigators are trying to determine how the nose of a LATAM Airways was destroyed after making an emergency landing in Paraguay. The flight en route to Santiago de Chile got caught in a storm and made an unscheduled stop in Brazil once it continued on. Now, the bad weather returned, forcing the emergency landing. Online photos show the tip of the plane's nose destroyed and cracks in the front windshield after landing. While passengers and crew were unharmed, video posted on social media showed passengers screaming in the turbulence of the storm. Haiti's National Police ordered to investigate the death of a Haitian journalist Sunday and fueling allegations that police beat a group of journalists and confiscated equipment. Eyewitnesses say Romel Sonville-Saint was struck in the head with a tear gas canister as police opened fire with live rounds on a group of reporters. Police sending condolences to his family and colleagues, saying officers were forced to use tear gas to control a hostile crowd attacking a police station in Port-au-Prince. But witnesses told the Associated Press that the victim, who worked for a radio station, had gathered at the police station in Delmas, demanding the release of a colleague detained while covering an earlier protest. The Association of Haitian Journalists accusing police of violence against journalists, calling it anti-democratic. And back here at home, the ferry bridge in southeast Exuma, which connects Great and Little Exuma, is to be rebuilt. The Ministry of Works announcing plans for the 560-foot-long single-lane bridge built back in 1965. That structure has deteriorated, and a long overdue replacement is said to be on the way. Senior engineer Jumaine Paul.
Right now is a lot of deterioration to the superstructure. So part of the plan is to reconstruct a new bridge, a two-lane bridge and a sidewalk on the western side of the existing bridge. So right now in the ministry, we're undertaking preliminary designs and hope to put it out to tender very soon. You know, it's a concrete superstructure, but because we're in a saline environment, meaning you have salt in the water, you get corrosion of the steel inside the concrete over time. As it gets corroded, the steel expands, and when the steel expands, the concrete shells up and breaks off.
No cost has been revealed yet, but construction is estimated to take about 24 months. Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears has promised it will not interfere with marine life. While no one has been awarded a contract, Bahamas striping group of companies stands poised and ready. Company Director Alan Aubrey says they have the capital to redo this bridge and others.
We've not done bridges before, and so our intent would be to partner with other local companies that have done infrastructure development in terms of bridges, and so we're certainly in position to move once the opportunity is advanced to the next level.
Still to come in our news, Today in History. Find out the interesting facts about the day that was October 31st, including the Battle for Britain. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, frightening fashions this Halloween season. Our Marlena Leonard reveals the trends when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was October 31st, including the Battle of Britain, the completion of Mount Rushmore, and the massive donation reaching the Bahamas on the second anniversary of the passing of a James Bond star. Take a look. In 1940 was the Battle of Britain, a struggle between Germany and Britain for air control of the English Channel early in World War II. On this day that year, the war ended. It was the first major military campaign fought entirely by air forces. The British officially recognized the battle's duration as being from July 10th until October 31st, 1940, which overlaps the period of large-scale night attacks known as the Blitz. British Royal Air Forces engaged enemies and shot them down at a ratio of about 4-1. Meanwhile, in 1941, Mount Rushmore National Memorial in the Black Hills of South Dakota was completed after nearly 15 years of work. The colossal sculpture features the heads of Presidents George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. The 4 presidents were chosen to represent the nation's birth, growth, development, and preservation, respectively. And then in 2017, 8 people died and 11 were injured after a truck drove into them in Manhattan, New York. The man responsible was shot by police officers in what officials are calling the deadliest terrorist attack on New York City since September 11, 2001. The rampage ended when the motorist smashed into a bus, jumped out of his truck and ran up and down the highway, waving a pellet gun and paintball gun and shouting Allahu Akbar, Arabic for God is great, before he was shot in the abdomen by an officer. And finally, in 2020, Scottish-born actor Sean Connery, who was perhaps best known for portraying super spy James Bond in a series of films, died at age 90. The Sean Connery Foundation announced that it will donate £6 million to coincide with the second anniversary of the James Bond star's death and will focus on supporting education and ocean conservation projects in both Scotland and the Bahamas. Bahamas-based projects include Lyford Key Foundation, Bahamas Reef Environmental Education Foundation, Cape Eleuthera Foundation, Girl Rising, and Swift Swimming. Oh, before you head out for Halloween tonight, you may want to pay attention to some police safety tips, especially for those little trick-or-treaters. Police are telling parents to map out a route for kids with a scheduled return time. They also say parents should ensure their children are with a trusted adult. As for their advice to children,
go out in groups. Don't go to a house alone. Don't go into any house of a stranger, because we are in the times now when kids could be abducted. We are also asking that our kids take your treats, take them back at home so that your parents could check them.
That was Chief Superintendent Anthony Roll, who is also warning that not everyone may be looking to have a good time. The reality is, he says, that some people are going out and will be up to mischief.
This is Halloween, so it's customary that people wear masks, and we have some young guys who might be out there to commit crime. We want to say to them that we have already been received our mandate from our commissioner, so officers will be out and about in full force. And where we found that persons are out there committing any crime, they will be arrested and brought before the court.
Watch that or any of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That does it for us in News at 7. Joining us now, Talia Hall. She's got the latest headlines. Talia?
Thanks, Ken. Well, those are some important tips to follow from police for those who are taking part in Halloween fun. Are you taking part tonight? No, I am not. I'm definitely not. But we've got lots more news to get to as police are investigating 4 murders that took place over the weekend. Live at 7:30, a bloody weekend with 4 murders in 3 days. Are they connected? Police bring us up to speed on the investigation. Plus, a Fox Hill business robbed and ransacked. We'll tell you why the owner believes it was no random job. And the relic of Christopher Columbus is gone. We'll tell you what's next for the statue tonight on Our News. Our News at 7:30 starts in a moment.